Guys, what you're about to see is my best interview ever. So make sure you watch it till the end. If you're part of Board Army, you're going to have a good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have it. The one and only Tanmay Bhat. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode with Aarthi and me. Now, we've had many famous people on the show. We've had Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Naomi Osaka, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon. The list is endless. But
today you're going to wonder, who the hell is this guy?
No.
Why is he following up these guests?
Hold on, let me finish, right? But all of these were just trial runs. They were the opening act. They were there to get the crowd warmed up. Because today, we have the main event, right? The person some of you were asking for, not many, but some of you were definitely asking for. There's at least one person in the comments. The one, the only, Tanmay Bhat.
Thank you. I've always wanted a wrestler introduction, and I finally got it today. Thank you.
Next time we get a budget for some theme music. Okay, Tanmay, so you are world famous in India, right?
In India.
But for some of our audience who are not either familiar with your work, introduce yourself.
I am a comedian primarily. I was one of the first batches of English language stand-up comedians to become popular, not from the television medium, but from the internet medium. Right. I was one of the first generation of YouTube creators when YouTube started becoming a thing in India. And then the lines between mainstream celebrityhood and digital celebrityhood started merging. Then I started doing a bunch of different things. I've produced a movie, written, acted, directed, a bunch of different stuff. I've done a bit of everything. And now primarily I run 3 different YouTube channels. One about crypto, one about general personal finance, neurology, a bunch of different stuff, my podcast. And I have a main channel where I review memes and I make vlogs. So I do a bit of everything. I
think it's probably safe to call you, I'm not saying this to blow hot air, up your behind, but it's probably safe to call you one of India's most famous online people, right? I think, at least for a certain demographic. But I want to go back to your story, right? Because, I think when we grew up, right, we were both pretty old. When we grew up, comedians being online wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing, right? But I remember you, and I remember obviously the Super Mario video is kind of the one which I actually really remember, but you folks was one of the first folks to actually break out on it. Do you remember the moment when you thought, oh wait, this whole YouTube and the internet could be a place where I could actually be funny?
Oh yeah, very clearly. In fact, I want to give a shout out to YouTube India. YouTube India, when they just started an office in India, they actively were trying to get artists who were doing a lot of live performances to start coming to YouTube. And most of the artists I remember when they were meeting had the same reaction that I did, which was, I don't think my art is going to translate to the digital medium. I don't know how it'll do on video. Until we did like the first couple of sketches. I remember one of the first sketches. This is 2011, 12. Yeah. Okay, wow. They were pursuing us in 2011. We didn't agree till 2012. 2012 was the first time that we were like, okay, let's start putting up YouTube videos. And one of the first 2 or 3 videos that we did, it hit 1 million views in like a couple of days, which at that point, which is the pre-Geo era. Yeah. In fact, like 4G was like 3G and 4G was like just about, penetrated the metros, and it made the news, like a video getting 1 million views. It was on mainstream news. Barkha Dutt interviewed us. Barkha Dutt is one of India's most popular journalists. Yeah. That's when we felt like video? It was a video with Kalki. It was called "It's Your Fault." It was about it was social commentary about misogyny in India. Anyway, right. So that video blew up. Then the subsequent month, we had a live show tour across India, where at every show we started asking people before the show started, saying, "How many of you have come here by watching us on YouTube?" And 95% of the hands would go up. Mm-hmm. Mind you, we'd been doing podcasting for 2 years before that on SoundCloud. And we were getting 100 people to show up at our shows. But then all of a sudden, we went to 1,000 people in every show. That's when we felt like this is the playbook. So now, when Andrew Schulz was, doing the YouTube thing, he was uploading stuff, he was selling out shows. And there was all this commentary about how he's not going the mainstream route. For a lot of comics in India, I was like, oh, this was our main route. Actually, this is what we've always been doing for the last last decade. YouTube has been our savior, in that sense. Yeah, that's how we began, and that's when it became very clear that distribution is king. If you can have distribution for 20-25 years, and it could be YouTube or any other platform, then you'll continue selling tickets. The shift from a comedian, a ticket is a byproduct of having distribution. This is a cross-selling product that you can sell to your consumers. That became very clear then.
So I want to get to Andrew Schulz and all this internet stuff in a little bit, but I want to maybe go back. So when did you want to get into comedy? Because one of the first times we met, we've known each other for many years, and and Tanmay may not admit it here, but he finds me incredibly funny. He laughs at all my jokes. There you go, look at that.
There was a time when you guys played FIFA.
That shall not be discussed on this episode. That was part of the contract that he made us agree to. We should save that later. But you told me about when we in the 90s or early 80s, there was really no stand-up comedy scene in India, because you went to the movies, and every either in Bollywood or in Tamil Nadu, you kind of had the comedians. That was kind of the path there. When did you want to get into comedy, and how did you kind of like show up on the stand-up comedy scene? Because I think there's an interesting cultural shift which happened in India around that time.
Oh man, so I watched Russell Peters, as most of my generation of comedians saw the viral Russell clip. It was called Comedy Now.
Yeah,
I saw that, and that was the first time I saw a brown face be funny on stage to like a global audience. Like I'd never seen that. Then I saw Veer Das live, and that's when I felt like, okay, I definitely want to go on stage. I had been going on stage since I was a kid. I used to listen to Johnny Lever's cassettes.
Yeah.
And I used to memorize them, and I used to, say the same jokes to other kids in school, and people used to laugh. So I knew that I wanted to be on stage. At that point, English language comedy wasn't very popular. In fact, Hindi language comedy had become really popular because of one show called Great Indian Laughter Challenge. It used to come at 9 p.m. on India's biggest, most popular general entertainment channel. That catapulted comedians to stardom, because the concept of a stand-up comedian before that used to be there'll be a music show, there'll be a break for 20 minutes is when the comedian will come and perform, and then the music show will continue. That's how it always used to be.
Right.
But that made it like, okay, an hour, 2 hours, you can go watch a comedian. But once I started seeing, Veer and Russell and all these guys do English language comedy, that's when I went like, okay, there is a stark difference between what happens on television and what like urban India was enjoying. So that's when I started getting on stage, and there became like a very clear Hindi and English type of comedy divide. And now it's all a mix. I think it wasn't so much of a language, but a sensibility difference.
Right.
I used to call it the divide between Bharat and India. Like Bharat had a different sensibility, and India had a different sensibility. That became very clear in the early 2010, 2011. That became very, very clear.
How would you describe? I think one thing is also, I remember you telling me was that if you look at maybe the elite or the upper middle class in any major Indian metropolis, right? Like they're probably going to be similar around the world. Like the average person, what they watch on Netflix here, we live sitting in the Bay Area in the US, it's probably going to be very similar, almost exactly same, like what somebody's watching in Mumbai or Delhi.
100%. In fact, Balaji keeps tweeting about this, which is India, 600 million people are going to come online. They're all going to speak English. Not only are they all going to speak English, they're all going to be consuming culture that everybody else is consuming.
Right.
It doesn't shock me now when in crypto we hear of all these like Akshay and me keep discussing, saying, did you know this founder of this NFT project is Indian? I was like, I had no idea. But this is, sorry, I forgot the question. You can probably chop this
basically out. That there's basically the upper or the educated maybe folks with a certain level of economic resources in India, especially in the major metropolises, are probably very similar in culture, cultural taste to people in large parts of the world.
So for me, that experience was interesting because we all grew up watching the same sitcoms that our generation did there, right? Probably they were, but at least the greatest hits we all knew. We all knew the greatest songs, the most popular shows, the most popular movies. We all consumed that. So I was always very nervous about, oh my God, I'm going to perform for a international audience, right? Like I'd never been to America. I'd never been to any of these countries.
Were you specifically looking up to any of the comedians here?
Of course. So I mean, all the popular US comedians, sure. But my first exposure, I performed at Comedy Store in London, because the Comedy Store opened a franchise in Bombay, and they used to bring down British comics from London to come perform here. That's when I started spending time around them. And my first experience was, oh my God, this, Louis Remy laughed at a joke of mine. I've never heard a foreigner laugh at something that I said. Like that calibration took time to fix. Then, I slowly started getting more comfortable talking to Americans, British people. It took a little while. And that's when I started realizing that actually sometimes, my takes on some world events are probably more nuanced than some of the other folks that I know. Largely interacting with Americans. That's when this happened. And then, that's where it became clear that actually the world is one. And now when Balaji tweets this, I really resonate with it.
Oh yeah. I think Balaji has gone all in on Indians.
But it's interesting because for us too, I think when we moved to the US, right, we had this sense of we were just super intimidated, and we kind of came in here being like, wow, we don't really know this country, this world. We obviously we have different accent, we look different, all of that. We moved to Seattle, and but the one thing that was unifying was learning technology. We had a laptop, we had internet, and we knew how to work our way through that.
Exactly.
So that was kind of the common kind of brotherhood of sorts, where people who knew technology, we were yeah, we can get along with you. You and I speak the same language, and we can get along there. So
but technology is it's software, and pop culture is intellectual software, right? It's the same thing. If you see kids now, there's some folks in my team who are 16, 17, 18, and they keep an eye on American Reddit to see what are the latest meme templates that are probably going to get adapted by Indian kids in 1 week's time. Right. So he sells me, he's like my meme dealer. He sends me saying, hey, this is the latest shit that's popping off in the West. I knew about Andrew Tate before most folks in India knew about Andrew Tate, right? Because he had seen the TikToks, he'd seen all that a good 2-3 weeks before. Right. So the intellectual software transition has already happened because the internet is a commonplace for everyone. I mean, the software one was obvious a decade ago, but the intellectual software is pretty obvious now.
I guess one question I'm just curious about this is a construction of a joke or comedy itself different for different markets? Does India's when you are in a crowd in Mumbai, is a joke different, or a construction of it or delivery of it? Would you do it differently compared to any other audience?
Yeah, I would. If I was in India, I would. I mean, the language barrier is the one clear difference I would make. I would be a lot more comfortable speaking in Hindi here, which I do. My act is a mix of Hindi and English. But outside of that, I think the fundamentals of joke writing or creating content that's relatable doesn't change. It's pretty universal.
Right.
Fundamentally, if you're able to surprise an audience at the end of a sentence, no matter in what language, you're going to make them laugh. It's puppetry of your brain. It's management of expectation and beating it. It's playing with anticipation. It's playing with silences. So the principles don't change. The subjects that you speak about could be different depending on where you go.
The audience.
I mean, the prefrontal cortex is the one that's context setting. That's the one that you're truly appealing to.
Yeah.
But a lot of humor is amygdala driven. Some stuff that is pleasant to the amygdala in one country is not going to be different in another country. Primarily, the baseline subjects are going to be the same. You still need to be likable and non-threatening in most countries.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that doesn't change.
I was watching, Rogan talk to the folks who do the Your Mama's House podcast, and they're basically all comedians stuck and getting very nerdy about comedy. And they talked about the amount of work it takes to get a tight 10-minute set.
It is
right?
A lot of work,
basically dying in various open mics and riffing and tightening the beats, tightening everything. And one of the things that is interesting about what you do is you exist in various modalities. Right? You're doing stand-up, right? Which you've rehearsed, and you have the set, the audience. It's like pro wrestling. It's like what you're doing. You exist in these semi-scripted environments. You're on TV, which we're going to talk about, and various kind. Then you exist on a lot on live stream where you're reacting. I am curious about how similar are the skills and preparation, and how different are they for each modality?
Man, that's super interesting. First of all, again, I come back to the principles of making content, whether it's live, whether it's improvising something, whether it's scripted, whether it's stand-up, the core principles remain the same. So in fact, I'm working on a talk right now. It's not quite there yet. I'm working on a talk about content creation and pattern matching, right? Content creation is nothing but brain manipulation at the end of the day. If you're able to manipulate someone's brain, you can do it real time, you can do it scripted, you can do it in 15 different ways. The basic principles that I use is creating patterns and breaking them. For example, what does Mr. Beast do? Mr. Beast creates a pattern by saying, one person is going to win this island out of 100, right? So there's a certain expectation that is set. And then every few minutes, he's going to break it. There'll be a surprise, wild thing. Some person gets eliminated for a reason you didn't think. A new person shows up. It's just creating an expectation and constantly surprising you. When I would live stream, I would probably know that, okay, if I want to keep this interesting, I need to get the audience to watch till the end. Same way like a regular video would. So probably design it in that way, which is at the end of this live stream, there's going to be a dare for the person who loses. Like, Shri, if me and you were supposed to play FIFA, it's going to be a best of 10, where at the end of it, whoever loses is going to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
So the principles don't change. Similarly in stand-up, right? Like Dave Chappelle has a special where at the beginning of the special, he says one really interesting line, and then he says, this will make sense to you at the end of the special.
Yes.
Right? Which is like creating anticipation.
Yeah.
Creating anticipation and then delivering on it. Creating a pattern and then repeating the pattern. That kind of makes the brain feel good.
By the way, for folks watching this show, you will not believe the last question I'm going to ask Tanmay at the very, very end. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff doesn't change. It applies everywhere.
Yeah.
So when I started live streaming, a lot of comedians on the scene were like, so you quit comedy now? You're not a comedian anymore. And I was like, I think the same parts of my brain enjoy itself as I would be doing stand-up. So I just, during the pandemic, I just streamed for 2 years. I didn't really do stand-up at all.
Yeah.
And I had a ball. I was like, actually, all of these mediums, it's the same thing. Yeah. It's just there's some sense of purity attached to one person being on stage. Whereas I'm like, streaming is the same thing, but there's 100,000 people there. It's
then I have to say, I wanted to ask you about the live streaming part. Like, to me, when I watched that, it just felt, the difference for me is I've seen your comedy, like stand-up comedy acts on YouTube, but then the streaming part was very comforting. It was like, I was like hanging out with a bunch of friends.
Correct.
And you're just talking. You're, sometimes you're gaming and you're just like chatting, right? And I wanted to ask you, why did you get into streaming? Was it just because of the pandemic and you just like wanted to pick up a new hobby, or was it like something more strategic than that? Like, why come up with that?
No. Why I got into streaming is a very sad story. But I started streaming good 4 months before the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I hadn't been working for about a year. I was just sitting at home on my bed. I was playing games the whole time.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to find something productive to do with this time.
Yeah. I mean, you were playing games for a year, but you still sucked at FIFA. But sorry, go on.
Oh my God, I thought we were not going to talk about it.
Well, it's my show.
Okay. And I'm going to ignore that. Strike one.
Wow.
So I was just like, let me try streaming. The core insight was, okay, I think a lot of people watch games. They watch gamers because it's low effort consumption of content. You come into a game, you already have context. The score is 4-3, and one person's got to win. If someone is really good, then you're watching them for the skill. I knew that if I start streaming, you're not going to watch me for the skill, but you're going to watch me for entertainment. And I just thought, okay, comedian gaming is probably a good combination. It's refreshing. It's new. Not a lot of people have done this. So I was pretty confident the day I started streaming that this is going to land well because I love improvising. It's nothing but streaming is improvising. So I knew it was going to land well. I knew nobody else was doing it. I knew it would be unique. And I knew that in the whole gaming sphere in India, nobody like me existed.
Right.
So I was pretty confident that I'd enjoy it and I'd get an audience.
But you
real
also mentioned this really interesting thing where people would be coding or doing something else and then having you in the background. Streaming, which is like very different from like a typical Twitch use case here, right?
Yeah. See, comedian or being funny, which is nothing but provider of dopamine. This as a teacher is more interesting. As a streamer is more interesting. Anything that can be taught in a funny way or anything that can be done in a slightly funnier way is naturally more interesting. Like if you look at edtech teachers in India right now, I see all these memes and clips of edtech teachers in India go viral all the time. It's basically teachers who are making jokes about, look at this atom and this atom. Huh? Imagine if they were dating. Huh? What would happen if they went on a date? Okay, and they're doing a comedy bit to explain like a chemical thing, and it blew my mind. I was like, you're doing stand-up. You're doing stand-up on live stream to a bunch of kids to teach them chemistry. This is what it essentially is. So I think, yeah, if you change the medium of delivery of any information, it's naturally way more funny. I think kids would learn so many concepts now. It just makes more sense through memes, right? Like kids are able to learn it quicker. So I knew that would work. And then Modi ji started streaming 8 p.m. He started giving these making these announcements. So I started experimenting with, what if I watched the announcement live? And I did this experiment on YouTube. My stream started getting more views than NDTV, Aaj Tak, India Today, all these guys. I started doing way more. I started getting pictures of people watching it with their whole family, with me in the corner and the news going on.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it is more popular than the mainstream channels?
I think there's a bunch of things. I think one is because you're funny, but also I think there is a parasocial relationship because people have known you, right? You people know of you. They probably have a predetermined image of you. You are a comforting presence.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, especially with the media thing, the whole thing feels like such a production and premeditated effort that like a skin of low effort on top of it, a skin of trust on top of it, which is what I am, almost makes things more like there's lower cognitive load. I don't know. I don't know how to make sense of it. Like, because the media now seems like if you notice, anything that's high produced is less trustworthy. Doesn't that seem to that now? Like if there's a casual video of just something that feels more comforting, that feels more real, so to say.
Yeah.
So I just knew that if I just sat in front of this, it would be more entertaining for general folks to just be like, this is more real. I don't know how to.
Yeah, they can relate to you more than to like a streaming broadcast from NDTV as such.
Yeah, like that's why when I started vlogging, everyone was like, you need a fancier camera, you need this. I was like, that's not true. I just need characters. I just need people around me that are more. It doesn't matter if it's on an awful camera. It won't matter if production is really low. One of India's biggest YouTubers, Bhuvan Bam, he has over 40 million subs or whatever, and he has never used a professional camera in his life. He has only used the front cam, not even the back camera. The front camera on his phone is the only thing he's ever used to record videos.
We've heard this again and again. We were talking to a creator who's very big on TikTok, and she has all sorts of amazing professional gear, but she makes the point to shoot her TikTok with the front cam, and she has these these earbuds with the cables buds on, because I do think it has a sense of, oh, this person just talking to me, as opposed to this is a whole production with a crew, and maybe that's 10 people behind us with lighting, and maybe you can't see us because you want to look natural.
Have you heard of the phrase "planned"?
No.
It's like a planned candid. Like people would say, take a candid image of me, but a lot of them are just posing. Like I'll pose saying, ha, 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 I'm laughing. It looks like someone caught me in the moment, but really it was a planned. So this falls in that genre. You want to be a little prepared, but not too much.
Interesting.
I like it. I want all of my meetings to go that way. Planned it.
To be planned.
There you go. Right. Do you think there are certain comedians who, for this, it comes more naturally to? So, for example, right, like somebody like Dave Chappelle, I can't imagine him because he seems so prepared. I know he works on his craft. He does a lot of
of course.
He goes a lot of open mics. It's a whole thing. Same with Chris Rock, for example. And as opposed to people who can be funny off the cuff. Like, even Rogan is a good example. Like, Rogan in his podcast is very different than Rogan
on stage
and doing stand-up. So do you think there's a certain comedian style skill set that translates to streaming?
I think anyone who would be great at interviews would do decent. It's like, I think Mitch Hedberg would struggle because he was a bit of an introvert and he didn't really like this kind of thing. But yeah, I think Chappelle also would be great. If you've seen a Chappelle is great on his feet. Chappelle can go on stage and just talk for 30 minutes and everyone's wrapped. Like, anyone who knows how to command attention in real time would be great at streaming. I think most great comics would be amazing at streaming, right? Just like, I think they'd be amazing at radio, they'd be amazing at podcasting. Rogan has a special skill. I think he is naturally curious, but not just curious, but the wide range of curiosity is what makes it interesting. Like, I don't know how many things I could probably talk to Chappelle about a few things, but probably not as wide as Rogan. Comedy is a lot. It's a lot about likability, Shri. If people like you, they're willing to listen to you for longer. They'll probably go with your ideas a lot more.
I'm very likable. Aarthi,
sure. If you gloated about beating me in FIFA, a little lesser, maybe.
We'll just edit that part out. It has never existed.
He's putting it in.
It's going to play 3 times back to back in slow motion like a Madras cut.
It's going to be a thumbnail, right? Like, Tanmay gets his butt kicked. I want to talk about Andrew Schulz, because we talked about it a little bit both now and previously. What do you think of what he has managed to do over the last several years? Because he's had a huge breakout year or two. I would say his podcast, the special, obviously, which has done really well.
Yeah.
What do you think of him, and what do you think it means for a new generation of comedians / YouTubers?
So I love Andrew. I think he's phenomenal. He's very funny. Andrew's really he's so interesting because he, like, this genre of which I think Rogan, a lot of these guys fall into this, like, neither left nor right category, which is, I'm just here for the blasphemy. I'm just here to say the shit that no one else is willing to say.
Yeah.
I'm just here for the lulls. Like, with Andrew, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
You truly feel like he's one of the friends you'd hang out with in a safe space where, everything goes, it's fine, no one's really judging. And that to me is like, I aspire to be that person, right? Like, I think after 10 years of ups and downs, I'm still scared of what I would say public. That's what I admire about Andrew the most. And to be able to build a cult following because of that. I mean, I don't think it could be a cult without it, like without this personality, but to be able to do that is phenomenal. I think Andrew got addicted to the game, which I think is super necessary. If you're going to play the internet game, you want to enjoy it, right? Like, I'm sure Andrew's a nerd about
the metrics.
This kind of, like, when Andrew has a video and he's about to upload it, he probably knows how many views it's going to get. Like, that's the game that I think he enjoys.
He's done like 20 thumbnail variations before he uploads.
Exactly. Like, he's thought about the title, like, because it's not just the comedy. I think he just enjoys the game of playing with an audience. I think that's what it truly is. That's why I think Andrew's one of those comics. He could do any form of media. I think if Andrew hosted the news, it would probably be the most popular news show in America, right? Like, if he went live every night. If Andrew did reaction videos, it would do great. If he did anything, it would be great. So I'm a big fan.
What do you think? I think one thing Andrew said in this interview with Colin Summit, which was interesting, was, before maybe several years ago, the path to mainstream comedic fame was, the ultimate thing you could get was a HBO special, right? Like, or Netflix special was kind of the thing. But with, Andrew, and like there's many others, I think, coming up really fast, your YouTube audience, in terms of raw numbers, right? The number of people you're reaching is dramatically more, and it is acting as a top of funnel to a special, right? Where the special doesn't really matter. Like, in fact, I would say HBO.
You're cross-selling a special.
Right.
It's a product you're selling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, Sri, like, I had an argument with a comedian recently who said, I have 35 minutes, which is really good, but I need 20 more minutes to really make it a special. I was like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you need 20 more minutes? Why can't you just drop the 35 minutes and that's it? This is your act. This is what you want to do. He said, but the special is supposed to be an hour. I said, no, the special is supposed to be an hour because Comedy Central wanted to package 20 minutes of ads and it was this time slot. This is why this has been working for a long time. And that is why comedy has been formatted this way. Yeah. Now it doesn't matter if you're going to upload this on YouTube. Why does it matter? Yep. Similarly, HBO special, Netflix special, all of these felt like like a milestone in a comedian's life was because distribution was massively controlled. How else were you going to reach 10 million people? Today, if you know what to talk about, how to package it with the right thumbnail, you can reach 20 million people every month, right? Like it's super easy. Like I clock 40, 50 million views a month. And my unique viewers are whatever 20 million or so on some in some good months, which is like, this is nuts. It's a TV network. It probably does more than a bunch of news networks combined. It's nothing but I know what people want to watch. I know what the title they'll click on, and how to get them to stay for 7-8 minutes. So YouTube algorithm does its thing. Every person is a media house. You don't need Netflix or HBO.
Do you think though that the Netflix special or the HBO special, there's a certain level of cultural elite prestige that comes from that? Because I look at a certain class of folks who have a special and they are anointed. There's a certain level of there's a certain level of recognition which comes to that. And I think a lot of YouTubers kind of like run into this in a little bit, which is even though the numbers and whether you might push back on this, and I would love for you to.
No, I agree with you. Please go on. Yeah.
But even though the numbers for a Mr. Beast or Andrew Schulz might be dramatically more, somebody who might get a Netflix special who gets like 100x lower viewership might be more accepted.
It's so interesting you said that because we were discussing Coffee with Karan. I was on Coffee with Karan recently, and me and you guys were having a discussion on WhatsApp about, let's just like, I don't want to disclose the numbers on Coffee with Karan, but I was like, I know my numbers and I probably know, I have a vague idea about what kind of numbers the top OTT shows on OTTs do. And I was like, but there is a certain prestige attached to it. Similarly, I was on a TV show in 2017. It was a mainstream TV. It used to air on Star Plus at 9 p.m. And my face was on hoardings all across the country. All right. The number of shadi offers, marriage offers that I had that week went through the roof. And I was like, but not that many people watch the thing. Hoarding is not a big deal. It's like 10,000 people a day. Why is this? What is the correlation? And Kunal Shah said, okay, bigger screen, higher status. Like that's how this country works, right? Like it's pretty simple. I think that's true for a lot of folks around.
I just like the idea of like, somebody's driving down the road in India and then stuck in traffic. They look at this and they're like, that's a good looking dude.
I got to marry that guy.
Yeah.
I had a family function. Okay. I had about 3 family functions that year. And I sat down with my mom and I said, what happened on this one? She's like, you were on hoardings. That's why. Everybody saw that you're a legitimate thing. There's a certain legitimacy that comes with being on a hoarding. Otherwise, the movie industry or the film industry is supposed to be like a, unstable thing.
I guess the question then is like, sure, you get marriage offers. Awesome. But outside of that, does it like move the needle?
What do you need outside of that?
Does it move the needle on like, your channel, your subs, all of that?
Not really.
Metrics that matter.
Not really. I think it affects the industry folks a lot because I think gatekeepers of brand money are the slowest to catch on to what's actually working.
Right.
So when I did Coffee with Karan, my managers were like, this is a great time to bump your price up by 20%. And I was like, this is insane. I might not upload a video for 3 months and that'll actually affect my channel's performance, but it doesn't matter because I was on Coffee with Karan.
Yeah, no, I was just curious to see if it like actually moved like any kind of metrics outside, like, legitimacy I think is important. I think it matters, most people, even like big celebrities don't get to go on Coffee with Karan, very limited episodes, all of that. I get that. But I'm just curious, like you're primarily an online icon, right? Like that's kind of like what you do as livelihood, entertainment, everything. So does it really matter to you?
I think a collaboration on YouTube with a creator with 5x more subs than mine would move the needle a lot more. For me personally. I think the psychological milestones play a really important journey in a creator's life, right? For example, I was talking to a bunch of creators and all creators have this journey, okay, that they're on, which is first they want to hit like 10,000 subs and they want to hit 100K subs. Then they want to hit 500K, then a million. And after a million in India, the creators are like, when will I have my own YouTube partner that I can call? When can I get invited to go to VidCon from India? You know, when can I get a YouTube? Can I get a slot at YouTube Fan Fest? That's what I know. Even though it doesn't actually move the needle, it's just a status psychological thing.
All the way to like, is Susan texting me every day?
Yeah, whatever. And then it's like, I want to launch my own merch. Even though low ARPU country, the merch is not going to make you that dramatic amount of money at all. It's not worth it. 5 more videos will make you that more money, but it doesn't. You want merch. Then you want to do a live show, like a live tour, right? And then eventually you want to come on an OTT platform, which is YouTube's loss. And then eventually you want to come to movies. Like, this is like the trajectory.
That's the trajectory.
Right? This is why YouTube needed to crack YouTube originals, because everybody then wants to go to Netflix or Prime after YouTube. That's
so like you basically, YouTube was basically like growing all these people, and then they like lose them.
Yeah, then they lose them. I had a talk with some of the YouTube folks here. And I said, you got to look at your system as like your own tier. You got to create the ladder for your own creators. And you got to offer them status at every point. Right. And it's almost like this is the carrot that's dangling in front of you. Unfortunately, after you reach like 5 million subs, there's nothing else there. Like YouTube, like brands will pay you more, but you get bored of it. Max you can achieve go for is 10 million. But after 10 million, where?
So Tanmay, where in this trajectory are you right now?
I just start new channels. I say I'm just going to scale them to 1 million all over again.
It feels to me like, in the US, right? It feels to me like there is still a gap between, the folks who get a Netflix special. And the way I like to think about it is, I have a friend who says he watches things which have high Rotten Tomato audience scores and low critic scores. Right? And because sometimes the people who get shows actually have the other way around, and they have high critic scores but low audience scores. Do you think it's a question of, okay, the mainstream will, the gatekeepers, will catch up? Or is there like a permanent divide where, you're always an online personality and you never really do a crossover?
I think there'll always be a divide, because it's like, okay, let me put it this way. When there is a popularity for a hot take or a type of content or whatever is a trend, it automatically creates a market for the counter. All right? It automatically does. And I think folks who write opinion pieces always want to be the counter, because you're not special if you agree with everyone, are you? Right? Like, so I think that divide will always exist. This this is like the counterculture counterculture framework, right? Like, when something becomes the mainstream opinion, it's got to make way for the counter. So I think for critics and audiences, that will always be there, because how else is a critic special if not having a more superior take than what everybody else likes? Like, how else is the critic supposed to feel good?
I like that. I like that. Okay, I want to just switch gears a little bit. So, one thing, Tanmay, I want to thank you for, here in public, is you've been so kind to me and Aarthi as we kind of like embark on our creator journey. We have taken our first step on the tier of success, that you pointed.
Channel's been blowing up. I was going to text you guys saying, what happened in the last 2 weeks?
People knew that you were going to come on, and they just subscribed in advance. That's what happened. We'll send you a referral fee. But
was it short? So seriously, was it short? So it's one of the shorts.
So there are a couple things. So I mean, the way I look at it, acquisition, just getting more subs, getting more viewers, has been through shorts. Like, that's been really good for like lead gen, top of the funnel side of things. And then for retention, we started doing solo episodes. And it's just me and Sriram, and we just riff, right? And
love it.
We thought, we spent a lot of time on the guest side of things. There's a whole workflow, booking, preparation, all of that stuff. And we were like, okay, let's just try a solo episode. And we kind of went into this thinking, it's going to be okay, not great. Like, even while like shooting the episode, we were like, well, this is fine, I guess, but we can't really tell. There's no guest to like banter with. But that did really well. And
you guys talk about first job or first week on the job and that kind of thing,
first week on the job. If you have a new job, what should you do? And, we are like the old people in Silicon Valley. So we've like done many different kind of tech jobs. And so we've been through this experience. So for us, we kind of know, but we realized that on YouTube, there are a lot of people who are just about getting into the workforce, getting into this like first job, it's like targeted to them, the advice stuff. And that's been doing really well on like metrics like retention. And, people on average watch like 12 minutes of that episode, like average, they get a normal user, which is insane, right? Like, so just things like that. So that's been really good. And then just more content. Like, now we are like 17, 18 episodes in on video. So we've just been publishing a lot more content.
We had a bit of an epiphany, I think, which is, and I don't want to sound fake humble, but we really think we're still earlier in our careers. We have a long way to go. We don't think we've made it by any stretch of the imagination. But we kind of realize a lot of people look at us and they are like, oh, I'm in India and I'm a student and I want to figure out how Aarthi and Sriram cracked this. And one of the phrases we've been using is, how do you become an insider? And it's very weird because we don't think of ourselves as insiders, but I guess
Taylor Lorenz does.
Well, to quote you, I'm not gonna go anywhere near that. But people think of us as insiders, and but in all seriousness, we genuinely think like anybody can be an insider. Like if you have a laptop, your internet connection, you can write code. Like to your point, a lot of people doing interesting projects, they come from India, or you don't even know where they come from. They come from very different parts of the world, very different backgrounds, and if we can find a way to give people the codes that we have cracked, or you have cracked, or Gary V has cracked, or Elon, or Mark, or whoever, right? I think that's valuable. So I think that's kind of the epiphany that we've had, which I think is working. But maybe compared to all that, I want to ask you a question, which is, you talked about how you sometimes careful about what you say online. As we've gotten a little bit of an audience, there are people who don't like our content. I'm not as likable as I thought. How do you deal with haters online? Because you've been doing this for a long time. You have a lot of people who don't like you. How do you deal with it?
That's interesting. My answer to how, because my career has been such that I've been asked this question every year of my career, which just means that the assumption is that this guy definitely has haters. Okay. Like earlier, the idea would be, earlier I would say that you want to pay attention to the haters, but the ones who can, the eloquent ones. Okay, because that's like, how do I explain?
Is it eloquent or is it like a constructive hater?
Constructive, which is more often than not, constructive criticism is elaborate, and hence it needs to be eloquent for it to be elaborate.
Right.
Right. Otherwise they're 5 words and they're whatever.
They're just trolling you. Yeah.
Now I think the way to now what I do is every piece of product that goes out, every moment of spike that I think would happen, right? Why do I say spike? Because people only want to hate on you when there's a surge of relevance, right? Which is, if you're living your life, nobody wants to hate on you because there's no retweets on hating on you. There's no retweets on you talking about your friend Ajay. Like nobody cares.
Sorry, Ajay. But nobody cares about you.
Yeah, but there is retweets when you talk about someone who everybody's also watching, right? So when I have moments of spike, which is like going on Coffee with Karan, I'm always aware of what are the attack vectors. What will they attack you with? Because you have to remember that you are a tool for retweets and nothing else. It's not actually real hate. You're a tool for, depending on the news day that it is, whatever it is that you say, what are the attack vectors going to be? So I'm a lot more careful about what I say now, especially during moments of spike. But that's because a lot of my revenue depends on branded content, right? Like essentially that's actually the big gatekeeper. The day I'm post-economic, I just know that I will slowly start saying what I truly want to. I actually don't care if you go tag the brand that worked with me. I don't care if you go tag my boss. I don't care if you go tag the podcast host who had me. It stops mattering to me. That's when I let go.
Outside of the branded content side of things, does it affect you though? Like psychologically?
Of course. Like the brain is like, there is no free will. Everything is deterministic. The brain just feels what it does, irrespective of. Like I don't think I've managed to train my brain to not feel bad yet. But I think I've gotten much better now. When I see an attack vector that's either if it's predicted, I feel good. I feel like I knew this would come. I'm at least glad I called it. Or if it's something I didn't predict, that's amusing, which is, oh, interesting. I still feel bad, but interesting that you chose this route. Yeah.
So Tanmay, how are people going to hate on this episode?
On this episode, this is a good exercise. Right? One is the one that I already told you, right? You can't get Elon Musk and all, Pomp and all these guys from, who's incredibly successful and then followed up with a comedian. It's just like, this guy doesn't deserve to be on your show. This guy didn't add anything to my life. You had A.R. Rahman the last time. Why is this guy here? That I think is one obvious attack vector that I'm very conscious of, and I called it.
Well, there's somebody who's typing in a hateful comment right now, and you're saying this. He's like, "Oh shit!"
Oh shit!
I think we'll just take this clip and set it aside and just publish the rest of the episode, and then follow through later with just this.
At the end.
Okay,
that'd be pretty funny. On this one I think is the most obvious one. People might say regurgitate. I know one thing that I have gotten before, and I know it'll make sense if people who, like, I'm assuming a lot of my folks would watch this, which is folks who have followed me. They would be like, I've heard him say this in another place.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's one, but that's not attacky at all. I don't think. But yeah, that's the only one I can think of immediately off the top of my head. Maybe once
for folks who want to say that. For all of Tanmay's fans, number one, just hit subscribe below first, right? And then share the channel and the link so that a lot of people can see it. So, I just want to make sure we get our word out.
No, but do subscribe. It'll open, like, Sriram and Aarthi talk to such a wide variety of people. Like, you'll think out of the box. Like, you'll just get a view into what you think is your ceiling, which I think
thank you so much. The one thing I love about talking to you seriously is you are my conduit to how young people in India think, right? Like, and every time we have met, we've known each other probably like 5-6 years now, right? You'll always tell me, like, how do young people think? And a lot of young people actually watch our show. A lot of young people in India also, and I'm sure your audience. If you could broadcast a message out to some 17 to 22, 23-year-old, maybe they're living in urban India or in Bharat, like, what would some themes be?
I think there was a quote I read by Naval, like, I think 3 years ago, which was, today's generation has a problem of abundance.
Yeah, he said that in the Joe Rogan podcast, I think.
Yeah, I think on the Rogan podcast, we have a problem of we have a problem of abundance, which is becoming increasingly more and more clear to me. So now I'm doing a bunch of these health experiments, right? Like, because of my lifestyle, one of my eyes is weaker. I want to lose weight, but my body is struggling to let the weight go. So I'm actively trying to do away from screen time, get my vestibular system kicked up the second I wake up in the morning, a bunch of these things. And it just makes me realize that it's just this whole generation is sitting down and consuming stuff, which is awful for our brain. That I think is one thing that I feel like is wasted potential. I see so many, like, kids who are 14, 15 getting, canceled in school, and they start virtue signaling then, and they start playing a social game online, which takes away from probably your most interesting years. I think kids should get away from that as quickly as possible. There are, like, I was listening to the Huberman Labs podcast, saying kids who start vaping, it's harder for them to let go because there's likelihood of depression is way higher if you start vaping younger, which is just insane. Imagine picking up a bad habit and you can't leave it because you'll get depressed after that. Like, that's nuts. It gets
right.
So, and that's like so there's just too many things to stimulate your brain, and I feel like this generation is not. No one is sitting down and actively working on this, because even the adults are addicted, right? Like, so I think that is one thing that I would, like, sometimes I'm streaming a game and there are folks who are like, I've been on the stream for the last 1 hour. I'm like, this is not good for you.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because there's a very clear benefit for me to do this. But what is in it for you?
Yeah.
That I think is this generation really needs to figure it out quickly. Because they don't even know that they're being controlled in ways that they shouldn't be.
Huberman, by the way, who's going to be on our guest, right? Like, he's going to be the follow. He's going to try and follow Tanmay. It's going to be hard for him soon. And but one of the things that lesson to take away from Huberman is, we might be the last generation who remembered a time pre-internet.
Yes, exactly.
And we knew Doordarshan, right? And we knew, like, not having choice or not being able to watch anything you want, do anything you want.
We knew what it was to actually be bored.
Yeah.
Just
dopamine was an occasion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I was talking to Johnny Lever, who did a show recently in 2019, I think the last one, 2020, where I went to one of his shows and I met him after. And he said something so interesting. I said, what's changed? You last performed in, 2001, 2002. It's been 15 years. What's changed? And he said, comedy is no longer an occasion. I remember when I used to do a show, people used to dress up and they would come.
Yeah.
They would come sit at a show. It was an evening out for them.
Yeah.
But now comedy is just a medium. Like everything, the news happens and there's 4 jokes about it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
So I just extrapolated. I think dopamine used to be an occasion for us, and now it's no longer that.
Yeah, and I think what Huberman really taught me, I think, from his content is you can choose what you want to use your dopamine on, and it's a little bit like a fuel. And if you choose to use it on, you wake up and you're scrolling through content. And by the way, I'm not against the internet. Without the internet, Aarthi and I wouldn't have met. We wouldn't be here where we are. My entire career is bound up in it. I'm not known to preach, but if you spend your dopamine online on screens, that means less for you to use it on other things that you want to do in life, like fall in love or have regular human relationships and any of it. And I think that's one of the things which may be good to go, okay, and in the current culture of abundance, anytime you can just scroll through, and that means you wanting to step out to do something is you just don't need to. Okay, the other question
I wish there was like a dopamine fantasy game. You know how there's football fantasy, which is okay, you have 100 points of dopamine.
Yeah.
Here's how you can spend them. Right? Social media is a 50-point card. Like you can't pick that. Mm-hmm. Right? But like running is 10 points. You can stack running with this, and that makes up 50 points. Which one do you want to do? Do you want a 5-player team or do you want a 20-player team?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's a good idea. Somebody should do that. But the other interesting theme which Gary we talked about when he came on our show was young people need accountability, right? And I think there's been a shift, at least in US culture. I'm not terribly about Indian culture, where if life isn't working out for you, there might be a tendency to maybe blame others. Or blame the system. And there are always a lot of legitimate questions, and we can have an entire conversation on that. But I do think there is some validity in terms of trying to take accountability for your own situation and trying to make yourself better, either physically, mentally, or some combination thereof. Do you think about that, or do you think that's relevant there too?
All the time. Like, I think this is a thing that I used to tell my friends, saying, whenever I see like someone's Instagram story update and it has like, their Instagram stories when you upload, it's usually a thing, right?
Yeah.
But it becomes a dot. That's how many stories you upload. I'm like, this person's having a very bad day right now, right? Like if you shared 40 stories, you really need that dopamine hit, right? Like you're having an awful day.
It's amazing you're articulating it, because I sense it. I've never actually like put it in words. I totally know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm like, you can just feel people like just punching in the air, wanting to just make something correct.
Yeah, just like shout into the void. Yeah.
I used to do this when people used to, at one point when I wanted to engage with people who used to hate me, I'd reply back and be like, what's actually happening? Can you talk about it? It's like, oh, sorry, dude, I just had a really bad day about this thing and I'm stressed about this thing. And that's why it came out on you. That happens all the time. It's people are less rude in person, right? Because they can touch and feel you, and you're not an actual literal punching bag. Whereas online, everyone's a punching bag. Who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, so changing tracks a little bit. You have been very good about reinventing yourself, right? Like stand-up comedy, figuring out,
streaming, crypto,
YouTube streaming, crypto, which I want to talk to you about in a little bit. Like, what do you think about how you, as kind of like a star, a mainstream celebrity of sorts, how do you think about reinvention? Because certain people seem to do it really, really well. I see it here in online culture, right? Like, Aarthi and I talk about Madonna, somebody who always reinvents herself.
Will Smith is a great example. Or at least Will Smith is an online star.
He might have gone too far in the reinvention part of the process, right? Like, maybe back up a little bit. But Gary Vee is actually a great example, where Gary Vee, you used to do wine, and then
we talked a lot about like hustle culture and working hard, and now he's really into like accountability for young kids, but also like mindfulness, and talks about that stuff. So just constantly reinvents. But for you, it's not just the reinvention. You also seem to know, like, you're like an early adopter on YouTube, and you kind of like figure out the zeitgeisty moment before it actually becomes that moment, and you kind of get in early on it, and you're like you grab it, you go big on it, and then you find the next thing, you go big on it. Like you're able to continuously just grow, reinvent, and move on to the next thing, and like keep capturing that audience. How do you do it?
I have a new script for this question every time, but the true answer is I don't know. I think.
I mean, is it your meme dealer who's like, "Hey, man, like now you have to go do this"?
I don't know. I like really. I've never been able to articulate it outside of just following what feels most addictive is the only answer. I really don't know how to answer this question, except that I really enjoy playing the game. The game is like, I think for a lot of creators, you have to distance the idea of self from the game.
Yeah.
But in my first part of my career, this was the same thing, which is what I do, that is me. But now I'm slightly more distanced from it. I'm still pretty close, but I'm slightly more distanced from it, where it feels like when I wake up, I have to switch on. Okay, this is the game that I have to play today. I have to go do this, as opposed to this is not who I am. That distance becomes very important for you to be able to handle the troughs and the highs both simultaneously. But it's tough to. It's like I recommend a cancellation for every creator. I tell them, say, if you can hit rock bottom, please do, because nothing teaches you more than nothing teaches you more. That's actually a really nice.
I don't know about that, because I don't think a lot of people can handle that. Like what you went through, for example.
I think most people would be able to, even if they don't handle it the way I did, they would come out of the other end with immense clarity. And it's almost like I aged 10 years in like 2 years, right? Like, because like that kind of, it's not number of, this I think I'm quoting Kunal, number of years of experiences, number of experiences a year that truly makes you grow, right? So that is immensely important. It's like, if you were dating someone, you're in the same city, that's fine. It might take you 5 years to feel a certain way of bonding. But if you travel with them for 2, it's all of a sudden wildly different, right? You feel a lot more bonding, right? Like men bond with when they're under pain together. This is why people who go to war together, people who worked in office together, had a common oppressor, that kind of thing. So I think I recommend a cancellation to every creator. I think you need to have that bottom. That is truly important. And there was a story, I was going to tell this story, which is, I forget what the context of the story was, but when you climb a mountain, right, you need to reach the top of the mountain to be able to see that there is a higher mountain on the other side. So you need to be able to come down again and then go all the way up again, right? Like, for example, for a lot of folks who generated wealth for themselves, why a lot of them now interested in content creation and personal brand and that sort of a thing, right? Which is, oh, I captured this mountain. Now I see another mountain that I wanna go after, and then you climb that, and then you're like, there's another one. So I think this is the key to reinvention, which is identifying the next mountain that you want to climb, because otherwise it's just, life's just boring, right? Like, so
this might be a good segue into this question, which is, let's say you're fast forwarding 5 years, 10 years in the future. Tanmay of then is obviously still streaming, still on YouTube, still shit posting, but what else would you maybe imagine yourself doing?
I think the next 10 years I'll go very deep into health. I think after moving to Bangalore for the last 8 months, I've gotten into fitness and understanding a lot of things about my own body. I think I probably start making content about it, but I don't feel confident enough yet. I feel like if I start making health and fitness content, people will be like, have you seen yourself? What are you doing? But I think that's the next. I think I'm going to get into fitness. I will forever make content. I don't think that's going to stop, be it in any genre, be it words or performance or videos. I think a short feedback loop is really important, because like a lot of folks, what they do is they'll begin their career by attempting a movie. They'll still spend 3 years writing a movie. And I'm like, unless you've written all your life, you don't want to invest your time into a long-term project like this, because you got to get really good at the cover drive to start playing a test match, right? Like you got to get really good at some stuff to start playing that. Otherwise, you're really you're shooting in the dark. so I think I will always make content. And I think one of the new things that I've started doing is work with startups, work with founders. Founders have faced all kinds of problems, right? Like especially second-time founders. I love sitting and hanging out with second-time founders. They're so much more secure. They've done their first thing. They found success, and now everything is on like, oh, you want to solve this problem? Oh, you do X, Y, Z. It's done.
They have a playbook for everything.
They have a framework for everything. It's like reading a book if you hang out with second-time founder like for 6 hours. I love doing that stuff. This is what I think is the plan for the next 10 years. I'll have more than 10 years, man. There's a lot to life that's left.
I don't know. Like, we'll see how many cancellations you have left.
I think I have 3 more careers in me.
I like it. I think so too. I think also, because you're such a naturally curious and relatable and likable person, you can do different kinds of content. You can flex between, celeb gossip culture, on Coffee with Karan, but then you can go talking into finance, and maybe we can talk about this like crypto. So you got pretty deep into crypto. You host a show with Akshay, who's pretty awesome. How did you get into crypto? What got you interested? What do you think of what's happening in crypto now? Obviously, I have some vested interest here, but I'm curious to get your take.
I got into crypto because Akshay is a common friend of ours. He used to be a comedian, then he worked at Uber. He's a lawyer. He does all kinds of cool things. He called me and said he'll stop being friends with me unless I buy Bitcoin. That's pretty much it. That's the main reason why I got into crypto.
When
this was in 2020. He called me, and it was a 75-minute phone call where he called me on Zoom. And at that point I started streaming. So by the way, I've recorded the whole conversation because he was in this trance, all right? He was like, man, I can't tell you, man. I can't. At that point, he called like Bitcoin 50K. Okay. There only I was like, I want to hit record because what if it comes true? Isn't this an insane moment that my friend is ranting to me saying, we start talking about banks, we start talking about this. And then I said, cool, I'll buy Bitcoin. Let me buy some. And then I did. And once my skin was in the game, I just spent 2 hours with him every day talking about crypto. Then he offered to start paying me. I used to have a second channel where I used to talk about finance. He said, can I pay you to make a video about Bitcoin? I said, no. I'll do it. Like, the money is not the driver for me. The traction on the content is what will make me feel really good. And I made a video about Bitcoin. And this is at the peak of the bull market, right? And that video did like 500,000 views. I was like, holy shit, we're going to talk crypto now. So then I started getting deeper into it. I'm reading Masari's ETH 2.0 report. At some point, Akshay was like, do you just want to start a podcast? I said, okay, let's do it. Then the DAO happened because Akshay was the one who ignited the idea. He said, wouldn't it be cool if we were able to make 100 millionaires out of these young, super genius kids from middle India? Like, wouldn't that be cool? I love the idea. I love the story of someone who came from nothing and they just absolutely crushed it. I love that idea. So if someone could be in Bhopal or wherever, like probably a more tier 3 city, and be able to earn in a global asset that makes them way more money than the current system would allow if they followed the natural graph. If we can create a system where we can make that happen, that would be pretty cool. And now I think our GDP we've given away like through work to earn almost close to $1 million now, has gone to about 150, 200 members, which is pretty insane to think about. In the last 10 months, $1 million worth of work has been generated for about 200 of these young.
I mean, I think the young people in India and crypto are so interesting. I mean, you and I both know Gajesh, who I think is maybe 14 years old, 15 years old, 13 years old. And, and I think he's an intern at FTX now.
But for XNFT.
Yeah. And, but it's amazing because, there are not a lot of, it would have been impossible for a median 14-year-old in India to have access to the opportunity and
WhatsApping SBF. That's pretty insane.
Or to have, just have kind of the platform and everything he does, right? And I hope, he has a fantastic career and he's very skilled and talented, but just the access he has because of that, this is amazing. So what do you think of the state of crypto in India now?
I mean, the regulatory concerns are still large and looming, but it's so obvious that Indians would crush it if they already are, as a lot of pseudonymous people. Pseudonymously they already are. But the regulatory concerns are too, like, it's one of those, like, everyone talks about it. Everyone's like, the second they start crushing it, they all move to Dubai. like the talent, it's pretty obvious that the talent is here. Like that thesis is completely playing out. Apart from that, it's been what I think. If you talk to anyone who's been there for about 2 cycles, I was talking to Joel John, who's seen Indian talent across 2 cycles, and he says the difference is night and day, like dramatically higher. And now it's not just, earlier it was just the technical talent who were interested, but now crypto's bled into more mainstream pop culture. That the last hacker house that we did in Delhi, we had about 30%, 35% non-technical talent show up, which is really important for it to be just cool, that not just a bunch of nerds care about. It's now looked at as a, hey, this is like a legit industry that not many non-technical folks are completely into it. So maybe this is an opportunity to be early on something. That's become pretty clear. And during the bear market, we're having the biggest hacker houses. The biggest hacker house for Solana happened.
Okay, for people who don't know, what is Superteam? What are these hacker houses? What do you do?
Superteam is basically a Discord server of incredibly talented young Indians, technical and non-technical, who work right now. They're all working on Solana projects, so they can either come take up an Instagram, which is apply saying I want to build this, and they get a grant immediately. Or there are bounties every week, which is, hey, here's you can make $1,000 if you write a great essay about this thing. You can make $1,000 if you do this thing. And then once they show a proof of work, which is if they win a bounty, they get to enter the Discord server. Like it's gated. So it's gated community of really high functioning, really talented individuals who've shown proof of work. And once they come in, there's all kinds of activities to do. There's projects flying around, there's freelance opportunities, ways for you to, make an income, ways for you to get a job. Now we have Superteam Earn, which is a platform where every job on the Solana network is all in one place, so anybody can go apply. You can just look at what's available. There's bounties, grants, everything in one place. There's over $18 million worth of jobs and grants all in one place. So that's what they built, and then it's just a cool community where where kids flex about how cool, what cool shit they're building, which is nice.
That's great. I mean,
awesome.
Can't get better than that.
Yeah, people like spam W's when someone's like, "Hey, I don't even know what they built," right? Because it's too technical for me to understand. But people are celebrating technical milestones that I wouldn't understand, and people celebrate each other's, bounty winnings. Like,
and anyone can apply. How do you choose who can?
Just follow the Twitter account or go to superteam.fun. You should be able to see bounties there. It's pretty easy for you to do.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to talk about, we're talking about creators, we're talking about crypto. One thing I wanted to ask, and again, just curious, who is a creator who is not yet super well known, but who you think is going to do really well? Could be within India, outside, anywhere. But, you're really good at spotting patterns and going like early on this stuff. So who's somebody who's going to do really well, you think, or is like incredibly promising?
Man, if you asked me this like 3 months ago, I would have had a list, but they all popped recently.
Who did you have on the list?
So there's a YouTuber called There's a YouTuber called Sourav Joshi. Sourav Joshi is, I think, now at 15 million, I think, subs.
Okay.
I discovered him when he was at 150K.
What?
Okay, which is still not early enough. Okay, but it was at 100K, 150K. He'd been vlogging for about a couple of months, and I'd seen this. So to give you context to who Sourav Joshi is, Sourav Joshi is a kid who currently lives in Haldwani, in somewhere up north in India. It's a small town. It's a tier 2 town, and he just vlogs his daily life, which is trekking in the mountains, going buying a scooter for dad, taking my little brother to school. That kind of stuff. Okay, yeah. He's really good. His production
wholesome, good content.
Really wholesome. It is, and he uploads every day, and he gets 6 million views every day on every vlog. He is the most popular daily soap in India. This is how I like to frame it. At that point, he was uploading every day, and I called it at 100K and 50K, and I was working with a bunch of startups, and I messaged every founder saying, "Yo, this kid is going to be India's biggest vlogger. You have to lock him down for a 10 video deal now." None of them took me up on it. And all of them now, there's about 3-4 founders, all of them text me saying, should have listened to it. Now he's too expensive. I was like, I told you guys that this guy is going to blow up.
What did you see about him at that 100K number that made you go, like, this person, he's going to be really big?
I saw that I watched 10 of his vlogs back to back. And this is the framing I came up with. He's going to be India's biggest daily soap because, so so vlogging, especially daily vlogging, is all about characters, right? So he has a younger brother who's really cute, right? That's like the main, that's the energy of the vlog. Then his parents, they are oblivious to the camera around them, right? Because a lot of people, they get very, like when the camera's around them, they start performing and everything.
They freeze, yeah.
But his mom doesn't care about the camera. His mom is cooking and she's yelling at him while cooking, saying, I told you to get this. It's so authentic. It's voyeuristic meets comedy meets like wholesomeness. It's a bit of everything together. You can't take your eyes off it. Cool. And he had a great mixture of everything that makes a good vlog. It was tight, it was consistent, it was daily. He had good characters and it was authentic. And one video of his, okay, let me explain to you what this video was. This is one of his first viral videos. I love this video. It's a vlog that's made in one room. It's their hall. The whole family is there. It's him, his brother, his cousin, his parents, his mama, mami, or chacha, chachi, someone's there. And the youngest kid, Piyush, has locked his father's phone. Okay. He tried to unlock it many times, but he got the pattern wrong. Now it's locked and there's something really important on the phone. Okay. And the whole family is sitting in the hall, like telling Piyush, why did you do this? You wrecked it. You ruined it. And Piyush is in tears. Like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Can I try again? Please let me try. And it's a 10-minute vlog of just this one discussion. Almost like no cuts in this. And it's so entertaining and it's so relatable. Like, I totally see how the young kid is going to get wrecked by the whole family for doing this. It's so sweet.
all the past family trauma is coming back to me.
Oh, man, yeah.
Maybe the last couple of questions, right? Let us say, we fast forward several decades, you're a wiser, much older man, and you're looking back on your life. We ask every guest this. What would you have had to accomplish, do professionally, personally, that would make you go, okay, I did everything I set out to do, and I'm quite happy?
Are you asking me the secret to being happy, Shri?
That's a good.
What is this question?
Tanmay explains the secret to happiness in life.
Wow, give me
on your deathbed.
Give me a harder problem to solve. What is this? I think my most immediate goal is to stop doing things for money. That's my most immediate goal as a.
Wait, how are you going to be post-economic then? I don't understand this plan.
Like, I want to be post-economic as quickly as possible. I got to call every founder I know saying, yo, you gotta
so the way you want to, you want to stop caring about money by basically becoming as rich as quickly as possible.
See, there's the curve, right? There's the curve, which is money stops affecting your lifestyle after a certain point.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, are you at that point?
I don't want to go down from this lifestyle that I have right now. Like, I think this is good. If I can sustain this with no work, that would be great.
I like it. Right? Well, Elon Musk doesn't have to care about money. We all should not have to care about money. Just make a lot of money. Right? Great life advice.
Yeah. I think I have stuff mapped out for like the next few years. Like for example, like I know I wanna have some impact for good, but I don't know what it is. Is it gonna be a startup? I don't know what it is. But I also know I love making content. So I just know that I'm gonna make like philanthropic comedy. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but fun videos that lead to philanthropy. Like
like Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast,
Mr. Beast does. I think that's awesome. I want to set up Bot Army Foundation almost immediately, like in the next year or so. That's something I want to do. For me, though, physically, like I want to explore myself physically because I've been overweight my whole life. So I know I want to spend the next decade exploring just all the things that my body can truly do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate going on roller coasters, for example. I've never thought of going bungee jumping. I have never gone on a trek. I'm now learning how to swim because I was too scared I'm going to drown. Like that, I just want to explore myself physically. I think that is super important. Yeah, this is how far I've thought for the next 10 years. I think these 2-3 things would probably make me really happy. Then after 10 years, this probably will bore me again, and I'll have to find another thing. Nothing will. This is what, and you're enjoying this right now, Shri. But if I asked you what are you going to do 10 years later, you don't know if you're going to be podcasting 10 years later. You'd be like, no, that probably will bore you, right?
I hope so. I don't know. I think the thing that we like about podcasting is, I think some of the secrets to this is you have to love the actual thing in itself and not the results. Because if you do it for the results, you're going to get frustrated, or maybe you get there and then you don't want to do it anymore. And the thing about podcasting or what we're doing right now is like the conversation we're having now is there's a little bit of like performance to it because we know this is going to be recorded. But it's probably like 80% of what we would just shoot the shit about, right? Like, correct. I'm actually much funnier when the camera is off and people can't see it. But
unfortunately, there is no evidence of it. So,
yeah, sadly. But this is basically what we talk about, and I think we just enjoy conversations and we love talking to smart people. And you're one of the smartest people I know, and I have to sadly admit that. And it's just fun, so we can do it forever. And we talk to somebody like Lex Friedman or Rogan. They would do it for fun, and all of these people are exactly the same off camera. They just love talking to people and understanding.
That's fair. If you're able to translate actual conversations you have into media, that feels like that's great. You're able to share something, and maybe that helps someone to put it in. If I had to put it in a way that I already explained previously in this podcast, I think the key to happiness is to find a newer mountain to climb every now and then. Is to be able to climb one, get down, and then start on a new thing, right? That's why I said I think I have 3 more careers in me. Yeah, which is really it's like it takes a full decade for you to
have a beginner's mindset, keep at it, and kind of enjoy the journey.
Exactly. Like
one thing I want to get to is a lot of people ask us about this, and I think I feel this a lot. Do you ever deal with imposter syndrome in terms of like, are you in the room
all the time?
Okay,
me being on this podcast is me constantly being like, what am I doing here? I told you this.
You are the middle act between Elon Musk and Gary Vee and Andrew.
Did you ever, I want to ask you, like, you guys come from, like, when you guys are hanging out with Elon Musk, is there a moment like at the end of Ratatouille where you go back to your childhood in India and you guys are like, how the hell is this happening to me right now? Do you guys ever feel that?
Well, let me be honest. There are times when people ask me this and I would dodge the question because I don't want to say that, we know somebody famous or whatever. But the truth is, I think yes, right? Like, because, and it happens a lot, right? It happens, for example, when we were at Microsoft, Aarthi, when we were much younger, first had an encounter with Bill Gates and she talked to him for a little bit, right? And it's Bill Gates, and you going like, wow, I think we called up our houses and, we told our mom like, oh my God, like we just spoke to Bill Gates and he had sent us an email about something and, it's very special. So, and one, yes, you still feel that way. It does get, it's kind of like meeting a celebrity, if you meet a celebrity the first time, somebody you've grown up looking up to or grown up on TV, the first time you're like, oh my God. And then maybe you work with them or you get to know them and it becomes a lot more common. But I think there's a secret here. I when I talk to people in pro wrestling, right? Somebody who's kind of become a good friend of mine is Triple H, Paul Levesque, and he would say the secret to being a great pro wrestler is you always have to remember how it felt like when you were a kid, right? And you're a kid and you're watching like Hulk Hogan or Bret Hart or The Undertaker and somebody's larger than life. Because 20 years in, you're doing this job and it's political and you're hurt and it's a job and you're competing with it. All the fascinating, and you can get so cynical and you can get so jaded. But you have to remember the little aw shucks moment. And Aarthi and I have a lot of these little aw shucks moment. Like, for example, I remember our first job was in Microsoft in Hyderabad, and we would hang out there all day and night, right? Like we just hang out there, we just young kids, and we'd have a little life outside. And I remember like we would hang outside on the lawn, and all the lights will be off except the Microsoft sign. And you look at the sign and you feel like, wow, we're actually here, right? And this may not be relevant or understandable by people in India or now, but when we were growing up, like Microsoft just kind of this otherworldly thing. You install Windows, you saw the logo, and here we were, and we were working there. We were a part of it, and it would feel special. And I don't want to say that I always still feel that way, but there are times when I still try and feel that way. Like, here's a story which I don't think we've shared. or maybe we have. When we first moved to the US, we were living in Seattle. But after a year or so, we wanted to make a trip to Silicon Valley. So we got a flight. We came down here to the Bay Area, where we live.
To be in the valley.
In the valley, right? Yeah. And the first thing we did is and by the way, for folks watching this, please don't try this. We drove down to Apple campus. Right?
We literally landed in SFO, rented a car, and then looked it up on Google Maps. And we were like, Cupertino. I think we can get there.
Yeah.
And we started driving down.
And to be clear, we knew nobody. We had no business at Apple. Folks watching this, do not try this. Apple security will probably arrest you or something. But we just wanted to be there, right? And we drove. We went to the parking lot. We stood there, and we were like,
Steve Jobs used to walk here.
Yeah.
This is kind of cool.
This is your version of people coming from all over India to stand outside Mannat. And
Probably.
I did the exact same thing when I came to SF, except my version is I put up on my Instagram story. Does anybody here work at Apple? I really want to see the campus. And so bunch of Indians were like, I'm here. Come, I'll take you out.
You know what? I'll say this happened very recently is when we got to meet A.R. Rahman, right? And the whole thing, we should maybe do a video about the whole day.
Man.
But
I mean, I think the to your question, Tanmay, like it never gets old, right? Like you talk to Elon Musk and there is a loop in your head. It's like, holy shit, this is Elon Musk. Like, what am I doing here? I'm so stupid. I'm so like, there's this question, does it sound smart? Am I like fumbling? Am I nervous? And, I wonder what he's thinking. Is he like, oh my God, why am I wasting time with these two Muppets? Like, what's going on here? And, you have this thread in your head all the time, like to put your point on like imposter syndrome. And we had the same thing with A.R. Rahman. We were like, first we were like sweating it because we were like, my mom's going to kill us if we like botch this up. Because she I literally like 2 months before that, totally randomly, she was like, you have a show on YouTube, I'm watching it. But you need to get somebody like famous, you know, like you have to get somebody like A.R. Rahman.
And by the way, to be clear, her mom said, you don't have too many subscribers. Let me show you. And she pulled up this cooking show run by this very nice lady in Chennai who has over 1 million subscribers. She was like, why do you have only a few K and she has over 1 billion?
She comes in, this lady cooks like twice a week and she gets so many views. What are you doing?
It's a great channel, amazing content, right? But there's a little part of me like, oh boy, like we're not doing something right here.
And so we were like immense pressure. And also, A.R. Rahman's from Madras, like Chennai is where we're from. We grew up like listening to this guy. And the whole time in our heads, we were like, let's not fuck this up. Like this is going to be terrible if we just like made idiots of ourselves.
And it wasn't. It was great. What did mom say after?
Yeah, so she didn't call me for 2 days. And I was really pissed. So I called her and I was like, hey, the entire world has watched this. How did you not see it? She's like, oh, yeah, I watched it. It was great. It was awesome. Did I not tell you that? It was awesome. It was great. So who's your next guest? And I was like, Mom.
Indian parents are hard to please. But, when we were in the room, we kind of used to it after a while, but you feel the pressure, right? Like you feel the weight of, there are probably like 500 million people who would kill to be where you are right now, right? And you have an hour, right, with somebody who's like a living God, and you have to make the most of it. And I remember being like, okay, are we asking the right thing? Are we making comfortable? Is it insightful? Is it funny? Is it something he hasn't responded?
He seemed really comfortable. I think we were super nervous. We were like, he's actually laughing at the jokes.
I think Rogan excels so much at this because he could get anyone and he manages to make an actual conversation like they're not a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
Maybe he begins by talking about something like something mundane that makes them feel like this is low stakes. You don't have to worry about this. I don't know. There's probably some.
But also he's like super curious, like genuinely curious, wants to know what they do. He's not facetious about it, has no ego about it, and he's also like he can talk about like hunting. MMAs, comedy, like technology, like you can throw whatever and he'll just be like, oh, great. Like I always wanted to ask you this question and he would just like be curious about it.
It's very interesting, because Mark Maron, who has the amazing
WTF with Mark Maron. I love that podcast.
Amazing podcast. And he talks about, the fanboy episodes, right? Where you're a fan of somebody, right? For example, Howard Stern for decades was trying to get Mick Jagger and then finally gets like 30 minutes with him, right? He used to always talk about how you want to get Mick Jagger. Everyone has that person. And, and And sometimes when you do it well, it really works. Everyone has a hero. Like, for example, for me, when we got Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, I grew up watching pro wrestling. I was totally fanning out, and it's great. I think the audience can feel the energy. They feel the energy. But he also has an interesting point that if for the guest, sometimes it's high pressure, right? Because you are in there, the fan, and you feel like, wait, I have to exceed their expectations because they know all my work, they know all my movies, they know every single story. I'm running out of stories, and what do I give this person that is new? It's an interesting thing. Like, for example, when you get interviewed, right? Like, do you like it when it's an absolute fan?
Yeah, sometimes, because they'll ask you. Sometimes it's really good because fans who've seen your work in depth will ask you things that are not just general journalist interview type, which is they'll ask you specific questions. They always have more context to your life. That's why it's more fun. They're okay with you nerding out on one tiny detail about one thing that both of you know about. So I agree. I think, like, if I was to interview A.R. Rahman, I would just like what you guys did, which is, let's just talk about specific songs for a bit. Because these specific songs did a lot for me, and I want to know the story behind.
I was just curious. Yeah,
because I think for A.R. Rahman, I remember going in. We were like, the first question I want to ask him is about Chinna Chinna Asai, Choti Choti Asai from Roja, because that is the first time every Indian ever heard his work, right? Like, so the story behind that.
And what a first thing to listen to, man. Like, Choti Choti Asai was like beautiful.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Are there people, and we can put this into a clip or a shot and get out there. Are there people online who are creators who you would love to collab with or do projects with?
There's too many. In fact, while I was talking to you, I was like, okay, I got to make like a 2-month trip to SFNLA, where Sriram has very kindly put me on many WhatsApp groups with many really cool people that I should probably meet when I'm there.
Dude, what about us? You didn't mention meeting us here.
I'll see. We'll figure it. I'll pencil it into my schedule.
Oh my goodness. We should do a travel vlog, right? Like Tanmay, Aarthi,
remove him from these WhatsApp groups right now.
Tanmay, Aarthi, and Sriram, like, go travel, like, do a road trip. Okay, but who do you want to collab?
Who do I want to collaborate with?
Yeah. Do an interview with, collaborate with, do content with, maybe meet.
There's just way too many people.
Pick 2, 3.
I want to interview Donald Trump for the experience of it, because I think just being
now you're going to get cancelled here also.
I know. But like, hear me out. I think, look, I'm trying to optimize for the experience of it, and not because of, like, I don't care about how the actual interview comes out. Like, I want to be in the room with someone and feel myself go through that experience. I think that Donald Trump would be insane. And I think a lot of these are driven by, like, how much you've seen someone on a screen, or the parasocial relationship you have with that person. Like that, if those interviews are like the most interesting. Like,
have you seen our episode with Sagar where he actually breaks it down? He talks about, like, getting to meet Trump, interviewing Trump, what it was like.
No, but I'd love to watch it. Yeah,
my favorite part of that is Sagar describing how Trump sets up his own lighting. Which I thought was very.
Oh, I've seen this clip. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, so that kind of thing, right? Like, you want to do an interview where it gives you 5 stories after, or someone, like, there's some major perception change, or you get insight into something. Like, you want something like that, where you're so far detached from that person that it feels almost impossible that you could ever meet them. Like, that's the kind of experience that I want to have. I think, Obama would be great, but I think Trump would be more interesting to interview.
It'll break the internet for sure. Okay. All right.
More unpredictable also, right?
Okay. Last question, right? And then I have an ask. The last question. For people who are watching this and they go, I can't be funny and I don't know how to tell a joke, give us the 30-second version of how do you tell a joke?
How would I tell a joke? First of all, everyone has been funny at some point. It's not like it's impossible to be funny. Yeah, I think a joke is nothing but a surprise. If you can surprise someone pleasantly, it'll make them laugh. It doesn't necessarily need to be through a joke. It can be a physical expression. It could be a physical reaction. It could be a stupid dance. It could be, slipping off a banana peel. that's surprising to someone. It could be anything. I think a pleasant surprise is what a good joke is. This is how I would put it. Now you can go look at the greatest jokes and you can decode it down to this, which is, rule of three, misdirection. All of these are tools, but essentially it's a pleasant surprise, and your body's reaction to a pleasant surprise is that's what your body does.
I love it.
It's cool.
Well, Tanmay, this last hour and a half was not just a pleasant, but an amazing surprise. So, I just want to say something, because a lot of people know you for just a person online, but we're going to know you, we had a privilege knowing you outside that too. And outside of being, maybe funny at times, you're a little funny here and there, I'll give you that. But you are a warm, kind, and incredibly keen observer of humanity. Like every time, we had a conversation, you always had an observation, not just about humanity, but also about me, which I also come to tell Aarthi about. And you're just an amazing human being. So thank you so much.
Thank you for showing kindness to someone you didn't really need to, man. You reached out to me when I was in SF, like we spoke. You guys, I love you guys. You guys are so nice, and I love. I'm so happy you guys are making content now. I'm so happy you guys are doing this, climbing this new mountain. Makes me very happy.
I love it. Okay, I have an ask for you, which is we do a little cold open that we start the video with, right? So here's your chance, right? Go for it, and we will stick whatever you do next at the very beginning of this YouTube video. Introduce this.
Guys, what you're about to see is my best interview ever. So make sure you watch it till the end. If you're part of Bot Army, you're going to have a good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have it. The one and only Tanmay Bhat. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Good Time Show by Aarthi and Sriram.